that I'd kind of like you to give a description of what you think a conflict between Israel and Iran would look like. When I had Representative Michelle Bachmann here, she felt it would take perhaps 6 weeks and that Israel could not do it on her own. What is your take on this, please? And you've gone over this before with my audience. Maybe you have an update and maybe you have some new insights.
Well, Jen, I think the Israeli government knows that they really can't rely on anybody else, especially over the last 6 years, to deal with the Iranian threat. And they have incredible intelligence on the inside of Iran. They know probably what Iran has more than what Iran knows they have. That was kind of the comment of King Hussein during the Six-Day War that Israel had with Jordan, Egypt, and Syria. The fact the Israelis know more about our military facilities around the Middle East than we do. Israel knows they can't afford to lose or even take one nuclear hit. They just can't do that. So they are experts in computer technologies. They have already got inside of their computers previously with a couple of Trojans, with Duqay's and another one, Stuxnet, also got inside the computer system in Iran. There are EMP experts, electromagnetic pulse experts, and they can isolate an area and take it out as far as the utilities in that particular area. They have, as far as I know right now, 2 submarines in the Persian Gulf, or that's what we understand. They just took the delivery of their 6th nuclear sub. They've got a 7th coming. They have extraordinary cruise missile capability. There's even been discussions since this recent release of what Israel has as far as their nuclear weapon program, that they have hydrogen bomb capability, possibly even better than what the United States has. And the other scenario, a good friend of mine in Israel used to be with the government, says when the United States provides Israel weapons, there's an assumption that those weapons that we've received are not capable of dealing with the Iranian threat. But we must remember that we improve those weapons dramatically when we receive them here in Israel. And we also know the avionics that Israel puts in their jets, the F-15s and F-16s that we have given Israel, are extraordinary. So the bottom line, Jan, they have a plan. It is comprehensive. I've just touched on some of the significant parts of it, but when you start connecting the dots and look at the capability that Israel has, they are very formidable, and they have to be because this has to do with their existence.
That's absolutely right. Did you ever think, Bill Koenig, that you would cover a story, and I mean on your website, your news outlet, about a U.S. president trying to oust another leader of another country, in this case, trying to oust Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, especially Israel. That U.S.-Israel relationship has been so special for so long. I know one of the officials stated here in Washington to some friends of mine that right after Obama took office, they felt this is the first time in history that they didn't have a U.S. president that was completely committed to the relationship the United States has with Israel. And if you look at the activities through the Arab Springs, the promotion of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, the negotiations with Iran, moving all U.S. troops out of Iraq, things they've done in Afghanistan, I mean, all of these things, Jan, are making the Middle East a much more dangerous place and a much more dangerous place for Israel to contend with. So this has been a shock. We do look at the Bible at Zechariah 12.
That's right, we do.
Does speak of eventually all nations will turn against Israel, and this may be it.
And Bill Koenig, you are on record saying, and this is going to get flack, and this comment's going to show up on the left-wing blogs, but you are on record as saying that Barack Obama is on a collision course with the God of Israel. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Well, the premise of this, Jan, is something that as you know, that I've shared with you and your audiences over the year, is that God gave Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants the land of Israel, the covenant land of Israel that goes all the way from the Euphrates to the large river there in Egypt. And it covers parts of Iraq and Jordan and Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and parts of Egypt. And this is God's covenant land. This was a gift from God to the Jewish people, and that no earthly leader has the rights to determine the boundary. And what I documented in my book, Eye to Eye, when we pressure Israel to divide their land or do things that are dangerous dangerous to them, it comes back on us, whether it's weather-related disasters, earthquakes, 9/11, perfect storm, Katrina. All of these have a connection to this kind of pressure. When we apply pressure on Israel, the greater the pressure, the greater the corresponding catastrophe. And to summarize, the God of Israel did not intend for Judea and Samaria, which is called the West Bank today, to be an Arab state. His plan is to have Judea and Samaria and all of Jerusalem to be part of the Jewish homeland, the state of Israel. And this is the collision course that Barack Obama and the EU are on with God over his covenant land. And he will respond, and there will be further consequences.
Bill, I want to pick up, and we may come back and revisit some of the topics here that we've covered already, because I'm not sure I'm 100% through, but I also gave a tease that I wanted to give a quote here by Franklin Graham. And folks, if you've just joined me, talking this hour with White House correspondent Bill Koenig. He's a familiar voice to my audience. He's been at 6 Understanding the Times conferences over the years since 2002. And a frequent radio guest. You can learn more at watch.org. But Franklin Graham said this, and I don't know who better to ask about it other than Franklin himself, but I will ask you nonetheless. And he says, quote, President Barack Obama and his outgoing Attorney General Eric Holder are, along with progressives in government, forcing a new morality on the American people, a morality that doesn't include God and which is an anti-Christ movement. It's the progressives that are trying, and the President is into this, and the Attorney General 100%, and that is forcing on the American people a new morality, and it's a morality that does not include God or his standards. That's what we're facing today. Would you agree with that, Bill Koenig?
Yes, I think Franklin is absolutely correct, and I think the great concern here, and we even saw it recently at a Easter prayer meeting at the White House, and these were people from the liberal Protestant churches that were there that favor same-sex marriage, LGBT, that have made this whole LGBT thing into a special rights situation, and they are attempting a new morality. Our morality goes from Genesis to Revelation, and there are sins, and there's consequences for sin, and especially unrepentant people that continue sins that are mentioned in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And attempting to say that that's not immoral, or same-sex marriage is fine, and LGBT is fine, is completely and contrary to the Word of God, and there will be consequences to that as well.